Well, welcome back to Devex World, everyone. We are here talking about higher education, and this is a session in partnership with the Arizona State University, our Devex World Innovation partner. And I can't think of a better time to be talking about higher education, especially during this pandemic. There's a lot to get into, and we've got two fantastic guests to have the discussion with. Professor Adris Malata, who's the Vice-Chancellor at the Malawi University of Science and Technology, or MUST, has had a long career in the midwifery, nursing, healthcare sector, has been a leader in higher ed, and really eager to hear her take on this. Welcome, Adris. And we have Sanjeev Khagram, who is, of course, the Director General and Dean of the Thunderbird School, part of the Arizona State University system, and a leader on so many issues, so widely known in our community for his work on climate and at the UN, and with so many other hats he's worn through his career. So it is fantastic to have both of you here to talk about higher ed and how we innovate at scale. And maybe we could just start with you, Sanjeev, thinking about the moment we're living in. You're the dean of a school. You're thinking about how to educate students at a moment when they can't all be in the same place. They have to maybe be remote. We're all moving to this online world. Is higher ed fundamentally changing? Is this a moment of maybe opportunity when you think about how only less than 10%, maybe less than 7% of the world has a bachelor's degree, has access to higher education? Is there an opportunity here for the global development community that's with us today at Devex World to kind of think differently about higher ed?
Well, thank you, first of all, so much, Raj, and the Devex community. It's an honor and privilege to be here with you and everyone at Devex World. And to Vice-Chancellor Malata, I'm such a big fan, and we respect your university so much. It is an incredible opportunity. As with every other industry, the pandemic has only accelerated what we call the fourth industrial revolution, the digital transformation of the world. We know that now, like no other time in human history, we can reach people in many different ways, whether that's delivering them products through platform opportunities and global supply chains, and services like education, Raj. And so despite the challenges, and we hope that everyone is healthy and safe wherever you may be, this is an incredible opportunity for higher education. As you know, Arizona State has been a pioneer in innovating in scale and innovating with scale for the last 15 years since President Pro took the leadership. Now have over 150,000 students, either in person or online before even the pandemic. We have over 1 million learners. We have a digital prep high school that has hundreds and thousands of students all over the world. And that only has accelerated and amplified similarly since the pandemic with new technologies, hybrid classrooms. So it is, while an incredibly challenging time, and in my view, an incredibly exciting time for higher education to reach the millions and millions and millions of people all over the world that really deserve to have higher education and for whose life chances that is so critical.
How do you see it, Adris, Professor Malata, from your perspective in Malawi, Vice-Chancellor of your university? Is this pandemic, is this move to remote and social distancing, is it going to fundamentally change the way you do education?
Yes, certainly it will change the way we do education. And I think three issues that come to my mind at this point is that I think we need to address the issue of access. Access, because we all know that there was a time that no student could be on campus. And I think for Malawi, it was an incredible time. And our university is the youngest, but we were able to roll out online teaching and learning, and we reached out to students in rural areas. But I think the challenges we found was that, one, students do not always have a tablet or an iPad or a laptop to use. So even when you say, let's start online for students who were basically used to be on campus, it was really a challenge. And for me, as Vice Chancellor, reaching out to public and private sectors to get equipment for our students, I just found the experience quite, inspiring, because there was positive response, although we did not necessarily have every student have something to use for teaching and learning. So the issue of access, Malawi's education, higher education, has only less than 3% of our population accessing higher education. But I believe that online teaching and learning can actually change the landscape for access, because we can actually have students at home and then access education. They don't have to necessarily be on campus. And I think our partnership with Arizona State really pushed MAST because we were ready to roll out online teaching and learning. Of course, we had challenges with equipment, and I think the issue of digital divide we can discuss later on. But where students don't have anything to use, how do you support them? But I also want to raise maybe under this discussion the issue of equity and also quality, because we are always mindful that yes, let's provide this access to higher education, but not losing out on quality. So it means all platforms need to be properly prepared so that students don't lose out, but also staff are given an opportunity to provide teaching and learning opportunities.
Right, and as I think about the kind of work that you have done in midwifery and healthcare, quality is really important. The difference between someone who has that certificate or that diploma and they really got the quality education and someone who didn't could be life or death in a healthcare setting and in so many other settings in which higher education plays this kind of critical certification role. But I wonder, Sanjeev, if maybe this pandemic is making us rethink the fundamental purpose and mission of higher ed. There are all these elite institutions. You and I have attended them, and I kind of wonder whether this elitism around higher ed is part of the challenge that we need to kind of change as we think about higher ed as a force for actually making an impact in the world. And this idea that Adros has brought up about access and quality, I guess, how are you wrestling with this in your own work, and how do you see the moment that we're in when it comes to rethinking higher ed?
Well, it's a great point, and Address again and her university are real leaders on this front. As you know, Raj and colleagues, for Arizona State University, we judge ourselves by who we include, not who we exclude, and that's in our fundamental charter. And so access is everything for us, whether they be historically marginalized or underserved students here in Arizona or all around the world. It seems to me that it is the other principle that I think the Vice Chancellor was raising is the issue of partnership. No institution can do this alone. And so the elitism of higher education has been, well, we are fantastic universities, we can just do it ourselves. But in fact, if we want to reach the scale and access and quality, as the Vice Chancellor rightfully said, we have to do it in partnership. And that means partnership with universities around the world, global university networks of all kinds. We need to go across types of universities and higher education institutions, not just the research university standing on its own island and the technical university or the professional school way off to the other side. These have to come together. And third, we have to partner with other stakeholders, as the Vice Chancellor said, with the public sector, with the private sector, with civil society. It's a whole of society effort. But we all know, again, that if there's a single lever that can improve the life chances of everyone in the world, and if we are to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and leave no one behind, it's education. And so it's an imperative. And just going back to the first question, an incredible opportunity. It's an exciting time.
Yeah, you could think about the elite institutions always had the excuse of saying, well, we have a physical campus, there's a limitation to how many students we can bring here, and it's the campus experience that's so much a part of this. But if you kind of get past that and think about the internet and the opportunity to do things at a distance, it does open up a whole new model. I mean, MUST is in a rural area. I reported last year from the University of Global Health Equity in Rwanda, also in a rural area. It allows you to think differently about where you place universities, what the campus experience is versus the online, and how to bring them together, and to maybe reach a scale of students that we haven't ever considered before. I wonder what you think about that, Address.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think COVID-19 pandemic has actually, I think exposed issues that we need to deal with. I think and a great opportunity for universities all over the world, regardless of whether you are in a low income setting or medium income setting or even high income setting. The issue is there has to be access. And I think there have to be efforts and investment now into higher education, but providing technology so that we have everyone on board. And I do think for me, as I actually look at the situation in Malawi and many countries surrounding Malawi, we now have an opportunity to do things differently. Because what I saw in this year was the fact that there was a lot of innovation. And I want to share with you an experience here in Malawi that our university was able to come up with innovations in creating face shields, masks on campus, and then giving out to hospitals, selling to those who wanted to buy. I mean, hand washing equipment that only uses sensors. And then even our own students on campus created an application that would help in tracing COVID-19 patients here in Malawi. And remember, there was a time where there was no aircraft going in and out of our country. And we were saying, look, before this, we would always look to other countries, but now we have to look within Malawi. And our university did demonstrate the fact that there's ability for our youth in this country to innovate. This was not led by teachers, it was actually led by students. So students also have had an opportunity in COVID-19 to come up with innovative ideas, and our hospital settings, rural communities have benefited from these innovations. And so to me, looking at what's happened even in other countries, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa, Zambia, when you hear stories about universities and what students have been able to do, even working on ventilators, even at MAST now, our students are still developing a ventilator and hoping that we can have a prototype very soon. So why am I talking about this? The fact that we've had opportunities to be innovative, it shows that that opportunity is there and we should leverage that. I think moving forward, universities should change the way we do things. We look at our curriculum, we look at teaching and learning, and the approaches should be different. I think looking at more innovative ideas as well as entrepreneurial skills, because even when students were at home, I heard stories of students who were able to even make money when they were at home because they were trying to use their own innovative ideas to bring solutions to the healthcare system here in Malawi. And I've also heard similar stories within the region. So we have a great opportunity. My thinking is that I think we should move forward, actually even with more optimism now and not relax. Because if we relax, the gains we've made in 2020 will be lost. So I do think that for access, for equity, for quality in higher education, this is the time even to put speed so that if there's another pandemic, we will not be taken by surprise. And I think Arizona State, I visited Arizona State, they were so prepared. And I knew when COVID-19 hit that one of the universities in the US that will not struggle is Arizona State, because they've been doing this. This has been part of what they do. And so my thinking is that all higher education institutions now should be more prepared. So let's institutionalize teaching and learning online. And even when there's no pandemic, whether we like it or not, to me, COVID-19 has taught us lessons we cannot do without remote teaching. Yeah, thank you.
It's interesting, Adjosa and Sanjeev, because in a way you're saying that we should be ready for the next pandemic because it's shown us the limitations, when you can't be on campus. We've had so many other reasons why students have been limited from higher education well before this pandemic. Inequities, lack of finances, distance from the city, so many reasons why a student might never get the opportunity for that higher degree or for that higher education that would transform their lives, maybe be an important part of the economic development of a country, transform a healthcare system. And I guess, Sanjeev, how do you think about this? Because there's a chance that universities will just snap back. We'll get through the pandemic, we'll all get that vaccine shot in our arm, and then we'll say back to business as usual. What is the chance here to think a little bit differently about the purpose of the university and about how we can actually reach out beyond just this moment to a new era where we recognize how many people are left out of this entire system that we built?
Well, Raj, I have to say, and this actually is the part that's probably makes me the least optimistic. I expect the elite institutions to revert back. I believe that they will go back to a relatively standard approach to higher education. They will go back in person. There are huge forces of inertia in these institutions.
And it's their business model.
It's their business model, right? It is. They are a premium good. They're a luxury good. But for those of us like the Vice Chancellor and us at Arizona State, we believe in a different model, right, Vice Chancellor? And we are, as she said, with our students, with our faculty, with our alumni, with all of these partners, with Devex, ready, willing, and able to innovate in every way possible to create that access and quality. And there are so many transformative aspects to this. We talk about the digital divide as the Vice Chancellor mentioned, ubiquitous 5G all over the world. That's what we need. We want to make sure that every student, and it's not just the young student, lifelong learning, ubiquitous lifelong learning, because no one, including ourselves, and certainly not me, is completely prepared for all the changes that are happening. We need to have continuing upskilling and reskilling. That can't only happen in person. Now, let me say very quickly that the in-person experience is a special experience. We know this. And of course, we now have to also reinvent how do we create high touch with high tech, high touch with high tech. And so let me just give you 3 examples before we pass it back to the Vice Chancellor. We have a model called ASU Local here in the United States, where even in the state of California, we have hundreds and thousands of students, millions of students who don't have high access to higher education for all the reasons you mentioned. First generation, lack of financing, lack of belief, lack of understanding of the system. And so what we've created is a system of hubs, a network of hubs in Southern California, or we're building so that they can do largely their classes online, but work together in peers with in-person advising, social interaction, mentoring, and so forth, so that they are successful. At Thunderbird, as part of ASU, as you know, we have set up a network of regional centers of excellence around the world. We're now at 12. We've launched 10 since I joined 2.5 years ago, and we're going to grow to 25. And each of these regional centers of excellence provides touch points for our students, wherever they may be in their life, whether they're just coming out of high school and beginning their undergraduate degree, or executives looking to take this next step in their career. So these are the kinds of innovations. But I just want to say again, in the short term, we're going to have to bootstrap a lot. Our colleagues, such as the Vice Chancellor, have been the innovators when it comes to, for example, partnering with the mobile companies to get access to internet time for our students. But we have to go well beyond that. And that is a call to action on the part of the technology companies and government to partner with universities like ours to go to scale.
Yeah, I think a message like this changes the way we think about digital connectivity from a nice thing to have to something that's fundamental to the economic transformation of a lower middle income country, because now it creates all this opportunity if the education system is prepared to use that digital connectivity. And hopefully coming out of this pandemic, certainly universities like Must are there. Hopefully we change the model such that this does become accessible. In lower income countries, Professor Malata, for a long time, there's been a debate about how much to invest in higher education. A sense that elite universities in the capital of the country are meant for the children of the elite, and that they're not really part of the economic plan, and they take up a huge part of the education budget. But it seems like we're now at a moment where we can break that debate and say it doesn't just have to be that kind of a model of a university. We can create a different model that is more accessible. It still has campuses. It still has hubs. It has online as well. There's a new way to think about this, Professor Malata, and I wonder if you can give us kind of your last words on this as we close out our session today.
Yeah, so for me, I think I want to go back to the call to action. I think there has to be an investment, because if we're going to reach out to that rural student, a student who has nothing, and I want to say for my university, we did carry out a survey, I think in March this year, when COVID hit, before Malawi had a case. So we went out to rural areas to trace our students. Most of the students, majority of the students, were in rural settings where there was no internet. And so the investment is not just about even having a laptop, but also internet access. And so the call to action should be, can we all invest? Can we have private sector invest? Can we look at connectivity? But can we also look at, do students have a laptop? And for me, actually, I've been crying because my thinking is, come next year, I have actually advised my leadership in the university that we will proceed with online teaching. So some students will now be at home. And the idea is that both student and staff skills should be strengthened, because if we bring back everybody on campus, we would have lost the gains we've made. So why am I saying there should be an investment? Is there should be institutions, funders, development partners, private sector that are willing to invest in technology, digital technology, all over the world, each country, and my own country, Malawi. Actually, I've just gone out to call for even those institutions that have got refurbished laptops. I'm actually looking for 1,000 for my students, because I've done a survey and I know that over 1,000 students still don't have anything. But I want them to stay at home. The reason is, if we are successfully implementing online teaching by next year, the way we've started now, it means in 30, 40 years' time, we'll be able to do this. And then we can get more students to have access to higher education. 3% for Malawi at the moment. And imagine 3%, it means majority of the youth finish higher secondary education, they're somewhere at home, there's nothing to do. I don't think in this century we should allow that. No student should have no access to higher education in the 21st century. I think all of us, donors, partners, governments, even our own governments, they should make commitments. We want that political will from our presidents to say, look, in Malawi, every student should have access to higher education. They don't have to be on campus. So let's invest in equipment, but also invest in digital technology. Because our assumption is that everyone knows how to use a laptop, but not everyone does know how to do it. But this year, all of us, our skills have been, strengthened, because we've been forced to be on Zoom, to be on Skype. These are technologies that for a country like Malawi, we really never used as much, but we have had no option. So I'm saying we've made so much gain in 2020. Let's use it to leverage progress for that student. And I'm all speaking for that student who has no voice, who never come to Lilongwe or Blantyre. They're in a rural setting in Malawi. Can we give them an opportunity to go to school, get that degree, get that information, knowledge that they will use to transform their own villages? Because transformation is not even just about themselves, but I believe I grew up in a rural setting. I went to school. I was in a mission. So my father helped me through missionaries to send me to school. Today, I have made a difference, not only in my village, but in Malawi, and I'm sure also in Africa and globally. But education makes a difference. And let's make education not just a choice, but a must for every young person, but also for the older ones, lifelong learning. They should still go back to school. They should still improve their skills so that we can change the landscape of our nations and improve people who are poor so that they can actually have better lives.
It's precisely for that kind of call to action that we wanted to have this discussion today, because I think so many people in the global development community, they look at higher education as a bridge too far, as an issue that's too expensive, it's someone else's thing, that's a slow moving area. And I think it's time to take a fresh look at higher education. Here are two leaders that you can look to for vision and inspiration around where we can take a new approach to higher ed that makes it much more available to millions more young people. It can help transform economies around the world. So I thank the two of you so much for bringing this to us. And if you want further inspiration, those of us who are following us today, look to the ASU Devex Hackathon, where we asked people to give us their best ideas to solve 5 real-world development challenges. We've been today revealing the winners, those 5 winners. And they, and this conversation, I hope, will give us that inspiration to see higher ed in a new light and as a core development issue that we can tackle in this time. So my great thanks to Professor Idris Malata, to Professor Sanjeev Khagram. Thank you for being a part of this, and to our Devex World Innovation Partner, Arizona State University.
Thank you so much, Raj. Thank you so much, Professor Malata.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.